So I'm a big believer in 3 notes per string scale shapes. I think they bring a lot of benefits to the player, but they do have the downsides as well. So firstly, they're really quite difficult to learn. You've got 7 quite complex patterns to learn up and down the neck. And also it's really quite difficult to know when you put your hand anywhere on the neck and you want to play in a particular key, which pattern should you use? And to be able to just bring it up like that, that's really quite tricky. So if you want to be able to do that, then this is a video for you. So I'm going to break this down into 3 sections. The first section is just introducing 3 sets of note fragments, 3 groups of strings, 3 groups of string patterns, which I'm just going to draw your attention to. And then I'm going to show you how these patterns fit together to build the scale shapes. And finally, I'm going to tell you how you can use these, how you can find the root notes in these patterns, and you can use that then to discover any key and allow you to play in any key anywhere on the neck. So let's get to it. Okay, so I'm going to talk about 3 fragments, 3 groups of notes. So the first fragment is this one. Hopefully you can see that's across 3 strings. And what I'm doing is each string has the same pattern on it, which is just this. I'm starting with a root note, playing a tone above that, playing a tone above that. So here I'm playing frets 3, 5, 7, then 3, 5, 7 on the next string, and 3, 5, 7 on the next string. Now, what I realized was this group of notes in this order seems to occur all the way up and down the neck, in every position of the major scale, 3 notes per string scale. So it might be between 6, 5, 4, as it does just here. If I was playing in C major in this position. Or it might be between 5, 4 and 3, as it would if I was playing in F major. Or it might be between 4, 3 and 2. The interesting thing here is because the G to B is tuned to a major third, not a perfect fourth, you actually have to put a little kink in the scale, as you have to with many things on the guitar, because those notes are tuned to major thirds, not perfect fourths. But the pattern's the same, it's still 3 notes. Each note is a tone apart across 3 strings, or 3, 2, 1. Again, you'll see the pattern, and again there's that little kink between the G and the B strings, but it's still 3 strings with 3 notes a tone apart. And you could imagine if I had more strings going this way, so I could go higher than the E string, I could start on the B string and start and continue the pattern just there, or even I could start on the E string and continue on the next 2 strings. So it kind of falls off the edge, going up and similarly going down. So that's 4, 5, 6. But if I had a 7-string guitar, I could have started on 5, 6, and then 7, or start on 6, 7, 8, if I had a guitar with enough strings. But anyway, that's the first pattern. The second pattern I saw is this one. So what is that? That's a semitone between the first 2 notes and then a tone. And this repeats on 2 strings this time. But it could repeat on any 2 strings, but again, it seems to occur in every position going up and down the neck. It might fall off the top or fall off the bottom, but this concept of 2 strings where there's a semitone between the first 2 notes and a tone between the second and third notes across the 2 strings, that's fragment 2, so that's pattern 2. Fragment 3 is just this one. It's a tone and a semitone across 2 strings. Okay? And just like before, it could be between any 2 strings, depending on which shape you're playing up and down the neck, but that seems to recur in all of the shapes as well. Okay, so I'm sure you're thinking, so what? Well, when you start to look at each of these shapes, you'll find that these three fragments are all you need to fully define every shape going up and down the neck. And what's more, they always occur in the same sequence, and that sequence is fragment 1, fragment 2, fragment 3, fragment 1, fragment 2, fragment 3. Let me demonstrate. So let's play in the key of G major. So there's my first position of the G major. If we look at the first two strings, you can see it's the top two strings of fragment 1, followed by fragment 2, followed by fragment 3. Hopefully you can see that. Move on to the next position. We can see it's the top string of fragment 3, followed by fragment 1, followed by fragment 2. How about the next position? We can see that's the top string of fragment 2, followed by fragment 3, followed by fragment 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, repeating. Let's move on to the next position. We can see again the top string of fragment 1, then fragment 2, fragment 3, fragment 1. Next position. It's the whole of fragment 1, fragment 2, fragment 3. Next position. So that's a fragment 3, whole of fragment 3, fragment 1, fragment 2. And then the final position. So whole of fragment 2, fragment 3, fragment 1. So hopefully you can see that there's actually something interesting going on here. These structures look complicated, but if you look underneath, you can actually see that they're built on 3 simple fragments played in a specific order, and that defines every position going up the neck. Okay, so how do you anchor these then? How do you decide which shape to play in any position? So what we need to do is to try and find the root note, and then we can identify the shape and build a shape around it. Let's look at each fragment in turn then and see if we can find the root note. So there's fragment 1. As I say, it's 3 strings, 3 notes a string, every note separated by a tone. Well, if you have a look at that, have a look at the notes in that shape, you'll see that the root note of the major scale that comes from is defined by the first finger on the middle string. So as my first finger falls on a D just there, I'm playing D major. These are notes from the D major scale. And that's true irrespective of where that fragment occurs. So for example, let's play the A just here. My first finger's on it, I'm playing A major. Let's put it just there. What's that? That's a G. So let's play G major. So hopefully you can see wherever that first finger falls on the second of the 3 strings, that defines the key, the major key that I'm playing in when I use that first fragment. How about the second fragment then? So with the second fragment, when you look at it, you'll find it's the second finger of the lower group of the lower string that defines it. So wherever my second finger falls, that's the root of the major scale that these notes come from. So that note is E flat, so I'm playing notes from the E flat major scale. So if I put my first finger there and I played the first fragment, you can see I'm still playing in E flat major. Hopefully you can hear that. So if my first finger falls on the note and I use the middle string of the first fragment, then that defines the key. If it's the second fragment and my second finger falls on it, I can use that to define the key. How about the third fragment? So with the third fragment, you'll find that it's the third note of the lowest string that defines the key. So that's an F, so I'm playing the notes of the F major scale. Move my middle finger to that note and play the second fragment. I'm playing F major still. Put my first finger there and play the first fragment. Hopefully you can hear. These notes are all from the same scale. Just 3 different positions. So when you put all of that together, you find that you've got the building blocks that will allow you to put your hand anywhere on the neck, I say just here, and play in any key. So let's try that. Let's try playing in F major. So there's an F, as it's my middle finger falling on that. I use fragment 2. Below fragment 2 I'll go to fragment 1. And above fragment 2 I'll go to fragment 3. So that's F major. Let's pick another one. Let's say G major. My little finger's falling on the G. So I use fragment 3 to define the shape that I'm going to do. But fragment 3 I go to fragment 1. Below fragment 3, fragment 2. Below fragment 2, go to fragment 1. Let's try just here, for example. What's that? That's F sharp. So let's try F sharp major. So just like before, we make that the root note of fragment 1. So I'll play fragment 1, fragment 2, fragment 3. So that's F sharp major. So we've covered a lot of ground today, but the approach doesn't stop here, and maybe this is a subject for some follow-on videos, but for example you can start to find other intervals in the major scale, not just the root note. You can find the 5th or the 7th or the 3rd. Find those in any position anywhere on the neck. Once you can do that, you can start playing using those as root notes, which gives you the modes. Or you can start altering these notes. So for example, you could flatten the 3rd and that would give you a melodic minor. So instantly you can play the melodic minor in any position anywhere on the neck if you understand the principles that I'm talking about here. But anyway, that's a lesson for another time. So just to recap, 3 fragments. If you can learn these 3 fragments, and you can understand that they're used in the order 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You've got the building blocks to be able to create any position of the major scale going up and down the neck. If you can also work out that the root note in the first fragment is that middle string of the 3 strings in the first position. The root note for the second fragment is the second note of the lowest string. The root note in the third fragment is the 3rd note of the lowest string, and that allows you to play pretty much in any key anywhere on the neck just by associating the fragment with that note and then building the scale up around it. So simple steps suddenly open up the whole fretboard to you. Anyway, I hope this has been useful for you, and we'll chat next time. Goodbye.